blonde.
No, I love like strawberry blondes. It's one of my favorite.
I actually
color.
loved your hair in the film. That's honestly, that's how I wear my hair all the time.
Me too.
I just throw it in a
It's always
so
a mess.
long. Yeah, it's just so, you know.
And you just need to get it out of the way. But
yeah, but you have a little loose piece. You know, if you're stressed out, you kind of just have some.
You've been cleaning all day, and it's like.
Like, how deliberate were the decisions for that?
Oh, the hair thing was really. Was actually pretty deliberate. We thought about the braid and her hair growing and keeping it back as sort of like, I don't know, denial of femininity, you know, not wanting to be feminine, wanting to hide. She's dressing in these, like, you know, the janitor sort of uniform. It's like very shapeless. She's got the hoodie and the hat on. It's all about sort of disappearing. And then when they sort of fall in love and things begin to think, she literally unravels that braid, and it's kind of like a coming undone of all the repressed, I guess.
So did you sort of make those decisions as the writer in the film and the actress who's kind of wearing these?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them Mike and I made together in the writing, and a lot of them he would make as the director, and then there are things that as an actor, I think you spend a lot of time daydreaming on, like, on this person and on all the things that you have to make real, and the clothes become such a big part of that. Like, she's always in, like, she's wearing big boots at the beginning, and the boots are kind of like, you walk differently with that, you know, you have a sort of more masculine walk and you feel stronger and more protected. And then, you know, later she's wearing a dress by the end of the film, but it's sort of like a burlap sack. I mean, she never gets too fancy, and all those things I think help you live in that, you know, world for a while.
Should we back up a little bit and just start, do you want to introduce your film and sort of the thought process behind it, and tell us a little bit about what happens and whatever you want to reveal?
Sure, yeah. The film is called Another Earth, and it's the story of a young girl and a man whose lives become connected the night of this terrible, tragic accident. And that night is also the night of the discovery of a new planet in our solar system, which, as it comes closer, appears to be a mirror Earth, like continent for continent, city for city, person for person. Everyone here is also there. And these sort of stories are interwoven. The story of this young girl and this accident she causes, and trying to come to terms with that, and this kind of romantic thriller that is born out of her returning to the victim, this man, and then the more sci-fi epic conceit of the other Earth coming closer and the potential to travel there and all these things.
Can you talk to me about what you feel? I mean, I saw little bits and pieces of films that I love. For instance, like sort of the detachment in Rhoda's family sort of kind of embodied what I feel from like Donnie Darko, like this kind of family that, you know, they're sort of perfect on the outside. They have this child that's suffering, and they're trying to cope with that, but they're really detached from it, and they're really just doing what they need to do to get by and maintain relationships on like fundamental levels.
Totally.
Can you tell me, like, in the process, did you kind of make deliberate decisions like, oh, you know, I want to draw from this film that I love, or is this all just sort of coming from another place?
It's interesting. I think there's no question that the films you watch and the novels you're reading and magazine articles, like all of it enters you and like comes out in the work somewhere. It's hard to say. Sometimes it's hard to point to like the exact influences. I mean, I think with like in terms of Rhoda's family, I think we wanted to properly isolate her and to sort of show that like on the other side of this tragedy, it wasn't really that her family didn't forgive her or that the community didn't forgive her. It was kind of like that she just couldn't let herself off the hook for it, and the one other person in the world who could understand that happens to be the victim of her crime. And so there's this like weird, they speak the same language, these two people, but I mean, he obviously, you know, has every right to want to kill this girl, you know? I mean, and so there's this weird relationship between them that is like, there's a tension underneath it because there's a lie at the center, and there's all this fury that he has, and then but then there's also this love story. And I don't know, I think those things are sort of born out of, you start with like the seed of the story, and then you're just looking for like what would help you tell it best. But so, oh my god, there's certainly so many influences in the film. Like, I think Mike and I both love science fiction movies, you know, movies with really epic ideas and great stories. Like 12 Monkeys is a film that I love, like, and have watched so many times. And And there are lots of influences, I think, like that.
So your character, she just evolves like beautifully, and so naturally through just it comes across. How did you shoot the film? Like, did you shoot it sequentially? And how, if you didn't, how did you bounce back from like this, you know, boyish sort of secluded, suffering person to this, like, she's almost a seductress at the end.
Totally,
which was shocking. That was like, I was sort of squirming in my seat. I was like, she's making the first move in this relationship, which is shocking, but it seems very logical. It doesn't feel, I didn't feel, you know, shaken up in a way that was bad. It was sort of like, this is.
It is shocking.
It's very shocking.
Yeah, given like where she starts in the film, it's sort of not expected. Yeah.
Right.
It's, you know, a lot of it was shot chronologically. We actually shot the ending of the film first, which was really weird. But that, when you're making these, you know, low-budget films, sometimes things happen and you just want to take advantage of them. And I happened to go for a run that morning, and there was this like insane fog over New Haven, and I was like 6 in the morning, and I woke Mike up, and I was like, oh my God, there's this beautiful fog. And Mike like comes out, and he's like wiping the sleep from his eyes, and he's like, let's shoot the end of the film. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I haven't even thought about where I'll be by that point. And he's like, look, just shoot it, and I promise you we'll do a retake of it later, but just do this with me now. And I was like, okay. And we did it, and that is actually the ending of the film. But everything else up until that point was pretty much chronological. Like it really was. Like, we went to the farmhouse in upstate New York, and everything that played out between Rhoda and John really happened in sequence, you know, with the accident happening first and then everything afterwards. And I think that's really, you don't always get that as an actor, because usually there's so many other financial concerns, production concerns, but when it does happen, it's an amazing gift, because you find things in the scenes as they happen that weave into the rest of the story, you know, that you would not have known would be there until the moment that you put it up. And that was really, I think, helpful for both of us. And
running always inspires good things too. I'm a runner.
Yeah, I think it really does.
You just find metaphors about life.
Yeah, and it clears all the junk
awesome.
out.
I'm really happy to know that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So the ending. It's like, I still don't know what to think. I meditated on it a little bit last night, and because I however you take it, I feel like it was extremely well done. I don't want to give anything away, but what have you? I mean, do people just see the film and then just like attack you with their theories, like, oh, well, you know, this is what happened and this is what this means? And
it's funny. I think everybody has a really different idea as to what the end means, what's been happening, and I think that those are the kind of movies I love to see. Like, I love going to a film where it's not being spoon-fed to me. Like, the film is respecting your feelings and your intelligence as a viewer to put things together, to daydream in it, and I think the ending of this like allows for that. There are a lot of different interpretations, but it's somehow satisfying, and that is like the weird balance. Like, you don't want to do an open-ended film where people walk away not satisfied. It's like, actually Mike uses this metaphor and it's really great. He was saying it's like a delicious meal where you've had just the right amount of it, but you're left wanting more. And the wanting a little bit more is a good thing, because it holds the film in your memory in a way that, like, if you're completely satiated, you know, you have had the experience and you forget it. And that's what we were trying to do. I don't know if we achieved it.
I think you achieved it. Definitely. Because when somebody, you know, suggested we do Another Earth 2, I was like, oh, that sounds like a really good idea. You know, there is that mystery that, but it doesn't feel like a cop-out. It doesn't feel like you completely, you know, just neglected that there is this presence that's somehow interacting with the characters on our planet.
Totally.
Are you really into sci-fi, or are you really?
I love, like, what's weird about sci-fi is that eventually things that are science fiction have a way of becoming science fact. So sci-fi is kind of funny, because a lot of things that began as science fiction ideas later turn out to be true or possible, or so I don't know. It's like there's this astrophysicist Brian Greene who has this book called Hidden Realities, and it's about multiverse theory, which is, he's basically saying that, like, another Earth or duplicate us having this conversation is not only like possible, but that it's probable and in fact very likely. And so it's weird because you make this movie and we thought, we're like, oh, this is totally, you know, crazy science fiction that we're just daydreaming up, and then we read this book afterwards and there are, like, the cutting edge of physics is saying, no, this is actually totally possible. Like, now we may not be able to travel to it, but like it is maybe really real. And so I don't know, sometimes I think that writers and people who are, you know, using their imagination to come at fiction storytelling often arrive at the same place that scientists and mathematicians arrive through imagination using a different tool. And I don't know, I mean, I think all of it could potentially be real.
Absolutely. Yeah. The universe is vast and unending and
totally.
Yeah.
That's the way actually that he puts it that makes it really easy to understand is he says that he talks about it in terms of like a deck of cards, and he says that there are a finite number of particles in the universe. So it's like a deck of cards, and if you shuffle a deck of cards, like, you know, 5-6 times, you get a different order. But if you shuffle that deck of cards infinitely, you're going to repeat the same card order, and then you're going to repeat the same card order with 1 change, with 2 change. So there are like all these outcomes when you think of it in an infinite sense. And so he says, you know, that another Earth and another you, another me is totally possible, which is
Does that creep you out or inspire you?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both, right? Like,
what do you think about people's natural tendency to assume? Like, you feel like Rhoda assumes that the other her is better, that has made, or she has the hope that she's made less mistakes, or she's taken a different path. What do you think about people's natural? I think that's everybody's natural tendency to think, like, if there is another me, like, he or she has it
down,
put together, and there's.
Oh, it's so interesting.
I mean, I feel like that was what carried everybody through the film. Is that we all feel that way, that longing to meet ourselves untainted.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. Nobody ever thinks to themselves, oh, the other me, like, I would be better than the other me. Like, I have my shit together and the other me probably. You're always hoping for some kind of improvement on yourself. That's so interesting.
Yeah, I felt that at the end. I felt like that there was a strong possibility that, I mean, when she is, you know, confronted with herself, like, it's sort of, you know, it's very objective, it's very black and white, and it could go really either way.
Totally,
So
it's tricky because of course we don't want to talk too much about the end, you know. But like
edit.
But cut. But it is. But I love what you're saying, because I think in the daydream of the doppelganger, like, we all think about the possibility of a doppelganger. What is that really coming from? It like comes from this weird longing that that we could have somehow made better choices along the way, or if this thing hadn't happened or that thing hadn't happened, how would I be different? And maybe the thing that you eventually arrive at the end of the film is that the version of you that has experienced a more imperfect life maybe like a more substantive existence, like
and more enlightened.
Somehow.
More character.
It's true.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think that comes across in a really subtle way. That's really nice.